God acts supernaturally in people's lives. People often think if God really existed, there would be some tangible evidence of it in their own lives. Something unmistakable, something dramatic, fantastic though that can be. Mostly people aren't looking for visions of angels or thunderbolt miracles. What they long for is something simple. Some sign of God in the humdrum everydayness of life. And the surprising truth is this. God's supernatural involvement is often woven into the tapestry of the ordinariness of life, far more than we realise. Most of the time people miss it. God acts supernaturally in people's lives, and most of the time they don't even recognise it. Sometimes it's a rescue, the kind that shouldn't have been possible. A near miss on the road, a fall that should have ended differently, a moment where danger was just inches away and yet passes by in the blink of an eye. Sometimes it's a warning, a quiet sense that says, stop, wait, turn around, don't go there. People often call this instinct, but instinct isn't always a biological or even psychological fight or flight reaction. Sometimes it's something, someone far greater. Sometimes it's a provision, arriving at the exact moment of need. A door opening that should have stayed shut. A person showing up who had no reason to be there. A blessing landing with such precision you can't help but wonder. And sometimes it's a presence, a peace that just settles when you should be falling apart, a strength that rises in you when you've got nothing left to give, a comfort that feels like someone is standing beside you, even though you're alone in the room. People try to explain these things away. Coincidence, luck, chance. But deep down, they know, they wonder, they feel it. Subtle, supernatural, that defies explanation. And I've seen it in my own life again and again. Not long after I became a Christian, I was having a really low day. I was unemployed. My social security money had run out and I'd no food. My cheque wasn't due for a couple of days. But I remembered a sermon where the preacher, I think his name was Andy Arbuthnot. He said, if you're feeling low, give thanks to God for 50 positive things. Before you reach anywhere near 50, your spirit will lift. Great, I thought. There is something to be said for positive thinking. So I thought I'd give it a try. I decided to go for a walk And as I started to walk, I was just thanking God for everything I came across: trees, shrubs, flowers in every colour, people in all their diversity, squirrels, dogs, cats, birds, everything. By the time I reached the headland, I was absolutely buzzing with gratitude. Crossing the heath at the foot of the headland on my way home, I said to God, "What a great day it's been. It would be really nice if I had just a couple of pounds for some food." My eyes were immediately drawn downward. And there, in the middle of the field, not on a path, there was a small pile of coins of different values. I stopped, of course, picked them up and counted them. Exactly £2. Exactly what I'd asked for. I was bubbling with thankfulness. I believe God could drop money from heaven if he wished. Well, he's God, isn't he? But also, I'm convinced that he knew my need in advance and guided my footsteps to that precise spot at that precise moment of my prayer to him. On another occasion, whilst renovating a house, I'd removed the roof and built a 2-storey extension. I'd used tarpaulins to protect the exposed top of the house and had held them down with bricks. It was a calm day and I was simply just passing through the extension when a sudden gust of wind caught the tarp, dislodging the bricks. I heard something, and without even looking up, I jumped to the right. Bricks crashed down exactly where I'd stood a moment before. I jumped again. More bricks landed exactly where I'd been then. I leapt forward through the open door and a large pile of bricks slammed down behind me. All of this happened in seconds. There was no time to think, no time to plan, no time to react logically. How I dodged those bricks, how I avoided serious injury, I can only put as an explanation that God's supernatural intervention was at play. The third moment I'm going to tell happened during the gospel mission in London with an organisation called Jews for Jesus. We spent days handing out tracts, during rush hour mostly, hundreds of thousands of them, one after another, hoping to spark questions about God. Not just from the Jewish community, but anybody that passed. By the 5th day, I felt weary and discouraged. There'd been little response. People had no time to stop and talk. They just grabbed the tract and hurried on. It was one of those grey London mornings, grey sky, grey suits, grey faces, people just rushing past. I wondered if any of it mattered. And then, in the distance, I saw a lady walking straight towards me through the crowd, her face shining, her smile radiant, a ray of sunlight in the dull, drab greyness of the morning. As she reached me, I said, "That's a beautiful smile you have." "I know," she said. "When I woke this morning, God gave it to me and told me to come and give it to you." Then she walked on and disappeared into the sea of grey. Oh, I was so uplifted, energised, and I set about the mission with renewed vigour, sharing that smile with others, watching it brighten their day just as hers had brightened mine. By the end of the mission, there were hundreds of inquiries about God. And then there was the one that still makes us as a family shake our heads in wonder. My wife had spent time preparing a lovely casserole for the family meal. As she lifted it from the eye-level oven, it slipped from her grasp. And for a split second, all she could do was watch in horror, helpless, as it began to fall towards the floor. The heavy dish, the hot food, the mess, the disaster, all about to shatter the evening's peace. And then in the blink of an eye, without her doing anything or making any move to catch the casserole dish, it was suddenly back in her hands, firm, secure, as if it had never slipped at all. It sounds unbelievable, and she might not have believed it herself, except our eldest daughter was standing just 3 feet away by the kitchen door. She saw it happen. She watched the dish fall and then watched it not fall. A disaster averted in an extraordinary way. A family meal saved. A moment so strange, so impossible to explain, that you can't help but sense the awesome, supernatural fingerprint of God all over it. You see, God doesn't just act in churches or holy places. He acts on buses, in storms, in hospital corridors, on lonely nights, or even in the kitchen. In moments where you whisper, "I can't do this," and suddenly you can. God doesn't wait for perfection. He steps into the mess. He steps into the fear. He steps into the ordinary. And he does what only he can do. What only he can do supernaturally, quietly, powerfully. So if you've ever had a moment you can't explain, a rescue, a warning, a comfort, a coincidence too precise to be random, maybe it wasn't random at all. Why should God act in your life? Because he sees you. He knows you. He created you. He loves you. And he's closer than you think.